even fathom or dream about trusting them with something infinitely more complicated like the global climate system. That's what we want to drive home with this film. And I honestly am super excited about this project, and I think it really reaches people where they're at, the average American, and will pop open their eyes, hopefully, to what's really going on here.
I think you're hitting at the core of the issue. You're hitting at their ultimate symbol, and that is, like you said, the polar bear. When we come back, we've got to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about your previous documentaries. You had one called Blue that was about a lot of environmentalism. I think it's very interesting. You grew up in Montana, in love with nature and the natural area there, so you're not anti-environment whatsoever. You want a clean environment, but you understand there's a different agenda behind the mask that they're using to sell these controls to us. So I want to talk to you about your other documentary, Blue, and then also about the one that you did on the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone. I think that's a very interesting take on that. So I want to talk to you about both of those when we come back. Just give us a tease before we go to the break about Blue. Tell us the subjects that it covers.
Well, environmentalism in Montana is really what opened my eyes to the whole entire topic. And growing up on a ranch, I was exposed to a lot of overreach environmentalism when it came to private property rights. And that's what got me going. But it covers the local issues and global issues as well.
We'll be right back with filmmaker J.D. King. Stay with us.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
And why wearing a Hillary for President t-shirt might get you punched in the face.
They thought it said Hillary for President. He said, I was seconds away from sending my bar back over here to punch you in the face. Since you're wearing a Hillary for Prison shirt, you don't have to buy drinks here. Everything's on the house.
Hillary for President! Hillary's not surging, I tell you that. They're not saying that. They're not saying that. Thank you.
There you have it. Donald Trump endorses Hillary for Prison. Get your Hillary for Prison 2016 t-shirt at the InfoWars store. And on the back, it says, legalize freedom. Show your disapproval of Hillary by buying your t-shirt today.
But what she's done is criminal.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
Welcome back. We're talking to filmmaker J.D. King. His website is bluebeatsgreen.com. He's got a new film about polar bears, the icon of the global warming crowd, and the fact that the narrative that they're feeding us about that, about the polar ice caps, is not true at all factually. But this isn't the first film that he's done. He's done another film called Blue. I understand that just went up today on YouTube. Is that right, J.D.?
Correct. Yeah, I just put the entire film up on my YouTube channel, Blue Beats Green, in light of what's going on right now at the climate conference in Paris and my new film campaign on Kickstarter.
Great. Tell us a little bit about Blue. Tell us what topics it covers and a little bit of how you're...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what Blue does, it gets into the nitty-gritty facets of environmentalism, all the little fingers that are reaching all over the planet, especially in the western United States where I grew up out in Montana. It looks at local issues where people, average Americans are fighting really for their jobs and for their way of life out west in the natural resource world, where environmentalists are shutting down industry after industry after industry in the name of saving the planet. And I interview these people who have lived through it all. You know, they grew up in places that were wonderful, were beautiful, surrounded by mountains, and the industry was great there, mining in some places, timber in other places. And environmentalists literally came in and they said, you can't do this anymore. They shut it down, and these communities have gone to hell in a handbasket. They've been destroyed, and as a result of that, we've seen crime rates go out the roof. Jails are filled up. There's all kinds of abuse situations going on. There's no jobs. All the young people like myself are leaving because there's nothing left anymore. And on top of it all, the issues that the environmentalists came in and shut down these industries in the name of, think spotted owl, think runoff, none of them proved to help the environment at all. In fact, they made things worse. And so that's what opened my eyes to this, and I document that. And then I trace it back to the bigger picture. So I slowly zoom out and I show issues that are going on in the world right now with climate change. It's the same story. Money, power, and control. I tie it in with Agenda 21, and a lot of the global thing is going on right now with that. Population control is touched on as well.
You know, when you're talking about that, I've seen a lot of stories about this as we talk to people about their struggles with BLM, the Department of Interior. At the Bundy Ranch, for example, there was the endangered species of the desert tortoise, and yet the BLM had collected over 1,000 of these and eventually took them out of their habitat, kept them in their area, said, well, we can't afford to feed them ourselves. So they euthanized them. They didn't release them out into the environment where they could survive. They euthanized them. So this is the insanity that they're doing. But seeing the same sort of thing that you're talking about, the devastation of the local economies, we've seen that in Oregon with the miners and the loggers out there, how they completely shut down their economy, said, don't worry, we're going to give you, we know that all the jobs are based around logging, but we're going to give you money from Washington for 10 years. Well, the 10 years ended. And now they're in dire straits because they got this transitional welfare state that's now being cut off. JD, that's essentially, as I see it, what's going to be happening to entire countries, what they have done to those areas, those specific areas like you're talking about in Montana and the ones that I've seen in Oregon and in Nevada.
Absolutely, because when you switch to something, you know, with crony capitalism, with a centralist government trying to switch to green fuels, you know, so-called renewables, what they're doing effectively is driving up the cost of energy. And when you drive up the cost of energy, you drive up the cost of everything else, because everything that we do uses energy. And when you do that, the cost of everything goes up. The economy is hurt. You get fewer jobs, higher unemployment rates. And so what I really want people to do is use the film Blue that I just put up on Blue Beat Screen as a tool to share with their friends and educate people about what's going on in this world right now. It's crazy with the environmental movement. I honestly think too, and I touch on this a little bit in the film, that by and large it is a replacement ethic that's being pushed by the totalitarians. You know, they want out with the old. They want out with you know, Christianity and Judeo-Christian values, and they want to replace that with something because they know people need that. And what they're doing is they're trying to replace that with an ethic that's all about the environment. Right and wrong is all defined with the environment now. Are you good for the planet? Is your carbon footprint too big? And it doesn't matter what the heck you do with yourself or what your life, you know, what you believe, what kind of lifestyle you lead. It's all about this replacement ethic. And that's something that's really concerning to me as well.
You know, we saw that exactly when we followed the Pope around. He was making a moral issue out of global warming. And he was telling people that, you know, completely ignoring all the moral issues that the Catholic Church has traditionally upheld, completely ignoring those and saying the overriding and the only thing that he's really concerned about are open borders and controlling the energy usage of people. But the reality of it is that that's not compassion. That is not helping the poor. The thing that affects life expectancy and standard of living more than anything else is cheap, available energy. Absolutely. And so there are ways to make that cleaner. But if you come in with your fiat pronouncements using an authoritarian approach, a top-down approach, to do that, what they're doing is they're creating a new kind of imperialism. That's what India said. Hey, we don't like the fact that you're arbitrarily going to decide at some international level which countries are allowed to grow and which ones are going to be forced to shrink. And that's quite frankly what we're going to be seeing here. We've seen it already, as you pointed out in your documentary Blue, and as we've seen in our news reporting, we have seen how they are selectively shutting down core raw material resource industries in the United States, but it's not going to stop there. The people who live in the suburbs and the cities need to understand that Agenda 21 is going to be coming for them too. We've already seen them moving for their barbecue grills, for their wood stoves, for everything, because this is about total domination. They will never be satisfied with enough. They'll never have enough. They're just like J.D. Rockefeller when he asked how much is enough. He said, well, always just a little bit more. They will always want more power over you, more of your money, and that's where they're coming for everybody. They're going to take away. If they don't respect the land rights, the property rights of people who have lived on these, they have these mines for over a century and a half, they're not going to respect your homeowner's deed either.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to these people who live out there and who were raised in the industry there, whether it's the mining industry or the timber industry, these people love the land so much. That's why they live there. They live there for the beauty, and they understand it better than anybody else. And what devastates me is when I see these people get labeled as, these people who just want to pillage and rape the planet and take all the trees and destroy all the mountains. That's not who they are. None of them want that, and they understand their backyard better than anybody else does. Better than anybody from Cornell University, better than anybody from Washington, D.C. And it is so insulting to them when they come in there and say, you can't do this anymore. That's right.
That's what they do to people who have ranches. They say, well, we don't like the way you treat your animals or whatever. It's like, those animals are not only they're my livelihood. If I abuse them, I'm destroying my own business. So in many cases, we see that. We're almost out of time, but I want to touch on the documentary that you did about wolves, because we've talked about the one that you've got coming up, sure. Vice Bear, about polar bears. Great film. Hope you get that successfully started with Kickstarter. Blue, that you've put up on your channel for people to see. Let's talk real briefly, just got a couple of minutes here, about the one, sure. The reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone.
So this is what got me going. The film's called Crying Wolf, and you can check that out. You can check that entire film out on Blue Beat Screen, my YouTube channel as well. Please do that. It's what opened my eyes. I was 17 years old at the time. I grew up on a cattle ranch, and we got surrounded by wolves. Long story short, they came into the valley shortly after the reintroduction in 1995, and they started destroying the wildlife that lived there. They started eating horses, ripping apart foals and cattle like crazy. The government was sending in people in airplanes to gun them down, and none of this was reported. Okay, it still hasn't been reported. And so I picked up a camera and a microphone, and I didn't really know much about the issue other than what I was seeing was not lining up with what people were being told. And so one thing led to the next, and I made this film, Crying Wolf, and I put it up on the web. And within about 2 or 3 months after I released it, it was up over 100,000 plays, and I was getting messages all over the world because wolf reintroductions actually are going on all over the country right now. Wolves are continuing to spread out of Yellowstone, out of Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, leaving a wake of destruction behind them. Elk populations, moose populations have been reduced 90 to 95% in a lot of areas in the West. That took 100 years of conservation to get these animals to those levels. I could talk forever, but a lot of this is part of Agenda 21. Corridors and carnivores was something I didn't even hear until after I released the film. I was listening to an environmentalist talk about this, somebody who pushes the Yellowstone to Yukon corridor, Wildlands Project. You may have heard of that, but it's about taking vast swaths of land from the private sector and transferring that to public sector. And they talk about core areas, growing them bigger and bigger and bigger. We're
out of time, JD. I wish we could go on a little bit more about that, but I'm anxious to see that film and the other films. The wolf truly is at the door, and that's what people need to understand, what's behind these moves by the federal government, by the international government. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, that's it for tonight's show. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA, so it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take 1 or 2 of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced. and it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.